You wake up on Monday morning feeling invincible. You have clarity, purpose, and the absolute certainty that you can conquer the week. By Tuesday afternoon, a minor email triggers a spiral of self-doubt so intense you consider quitting everything. By Friday night, you are consumed by rage over a trivial slight. Why does your inner life feel like a violent, unpredictable weather system? Why do you constantly feel like a passenger in your own mind, watching helplessly as different versions of yourself take the wheel? We call this instability mood swings. We dismiss it as poor sleep or stress. But this chaos is not random. It is the fundamental, terrifying reality of the human condition. The constant, unavoidable rotation through what the ancient masters called the 10 worlds. These are not mythological destinations you travel to after death. They are the 10 distinct psychological states that you inhabit every single day. They are the map of your consciousness, and they determine the quality of your entire existence. You are not one unified self. You are 10 different people fighting for control of the steering wheel. When you feel that crushing weight of failure, that inescapable despair, where life feels like a torture device, you are residing in the world of hell. It is the state of utter powerlessness, where suffering is the only reality. When you are restless, driven by an insatiable need for external satisfaction, for money, for fame, for status, for approval, always consuming, never satisfied, you are in the world of hunger. It is addiction disguised as ambition. When you are driven purely by instinct, dominated by fear and the immediate need to survive, to dominate others, or to flee from threat, you are operating in the world of animality. You are living without reason, without higher conscience. Hell, hunger, and animality. These 3 states are the gravity of the human spirit. They require zero effort. They are the default destination of the untrained mind. If you stop climbing, this is where you land. And then there are the states of temporary stability, arrogance, humility, and rapture. We chase these desperately, believing they represent happiness, only to find they are just temporary stops before the inevitable fall back into the lower worlds. For thousands of years, humanity lacked the blueprint. We had no language powerful enough to chart this internal chaos. We suffered without understanding the mechanism of our own suffering. Then, 3,000 years ago, a man named Siddhartha Gautama stood up and provided the definitive operating manual for the human mind. He didn't offer philosophy. He offered precision engineering. He revealed the true nature of existence, the ultimate diagnostic tool for psychological stability. He was the original architect of this map, charting the journey from the deepest pits of despair, all the way up to the ultimate state of freedom, Buddhahood. But the map itself was not enough. The practice was lost. The clarity was corrupted by institutionalization and complexity. The powerful, immediate technology for controlling this internal rotation was buried under layers of ritual and abstraction. It took 1,500 years for the fire to be rekindled. It took the absolute, unshakable conviction of one monk in 13th century Japan to strip away all the confusion and to return the practice to its essential, potent core. His name was Nichiren, and his life was the ultimate living demonstration of the 10 worlds in action. His struggle proves that the 10 worlds are not just a theory. They are the battleground of every life. Nichiren was born into an era of chaos. Famine, plague, and civil war ravaged Japan.
The established Buddhist schools offered comfort and promises of salvation in the next life, but they offered no real solution for the suffering of this life. They were selling escapism. Nichiren rejected escapism. He demanded a practice that worked immediately, in the present moment, for the average person struggling with debt, illness, and despair. He was obsessed with one question. If the Buddha's teachings are the ultimate truth, why is the world still drowning in misery? His diagnosis was clinical and brutal. He concluded that the established religious authorities had betrayed the core message. They had discarded the most powerful teaching, the Lotus Sutra, which contains the key to unlocking the highest state of life, the state of Buddhahood in this very existence. Nichiren's journey was not academic. It was a war against the inertia of the lower worlds, both within himself and within society.
He recognized that to change the world, you first had to change the fundamental state of the people. And to do that, you needed a tool simple enough for anyone to use, yet powerful enough to shift the axis of the planet. This realization led him to the ultimate declaration, the articulation of the practice we use today. But this declaration came at an unimaginable cost. When you challenge the gravity of the lower worlds fight back. When you preach a message of empowerment that threatens the established order, that order will attempt to crush you. Nichiren's life became a terrifying demonstration of how the 10 worlds manifest externally. He endured persecution that few modern people could comprehend. He faced exile, assassination attempts, imprisonment, and constant betrayal. He was attacked by mobs. He was banished to remote islands, where survival was a daily miracle.
He stood on a beach, moments away from execution, his head literally on the block, saved only by a sudden, inexplicable celestial phenomenon. Every single one of these physical, external attacks was a manifestation of the lower states of mind. Hell, animality, arrogance, projected onto him by those who could not bear the truth he was speaking. And yet, through every exile, every attack, every moment of despair, Nichiren never wavered. He used the very suffering imposed upon him as fuel. He used the world of hell as the launching pad for the world of Buddhahood. His survival and his ultimate victory were not miracles of fate. They were the inevitable result of mastering the technology of the 10 worlds. He proved that no external circumstance, no matter how dire, can hold you hostage if you maintain control of your internal state. He taught us that the 10 worlds are not a ladder you climb once. They are a cycle you spin through constantly.
The ultimate goal is not to eliminate the lower states. That is impossible. But to develop the internal power to instantly shift your consciousness, to move from hell to Buddhahood in a single moment, and to use the energy of suffering as the engine for your compassion and courage. To understand how to do this, we must first understand the complete map. We must see the full scale of the psychological territory you traverse every single day. We have charted the lower 3 states, hell, hunger, and animality. We will now examine the pivotal middle ground, the states that define the majority of modern life: arrogance, rapture, and humanity. These are the traps of temporary satisfaction. The world of arrogance, often called anger or asura, is perhaps the most insidious trap of all. It is the state where you feel superior. It is the ego inflating itself by diminishing others. You are competent, you are powerful, but you are consumed by the need to compete and to dominate.
This is the state of the modern professional, climbing the corporate ladder, driven not by passion, but by the desperate need to be slightly better, slightly richer, slightly more recognized than the person next to them. It is the state where you see the world as a zero-sum game. Your happiness depends on someone else's loss. Arrogance is a high-energy state. It feels productive, it feels strong, but it is fundamentally unstable because it is based on illusion. It requires constant external validation, and the moment that validation is threatened, it collapses instantly back into hell or animality. Then there is the world of rapture. This is the state of temporary joy. You win the lottery, you get the promotion, you fall in love. It is the high, it is euphoria. But rapture is entirely dependent on external conditions. When the conditions change, when the money runs out, when the relationship ends, when the praise stops, the rapture vanishes, leaving behind an emptiness that feels worse than the original suffering. It is a fragile bubble. Finally, the world of humanity. This is the baseline of human existence. It is the state of reasoned calm. You are stable, reflective, capable of making rational decisions. You can experience empathy and self-control. Humanity is the goal for most psychologies. It is the place where you can live a functional, decent life. But even humanity is insufficient because it is vulnerable. It is the transition point. One bad piece of news, one major betrayal, and humanity collapses into anger or hell. It lacks the internal fortitude to weather true existential storms. These 6 lower states, hell, hunger, animality, arrogance, rapture, and humanity, they describe 99% of the suffering on this planet. They describe the psychological prison we build for ourselves. They are the 6 paths of transmigration, the endless, agonizing cycle of birth and death, of hope and despair. But the map does not end there. The map reveals 4 higher states, and these 4 higher states are the key to true freedom. They are the states where you begin to take control of the steering wheel. They are the worlds of learning, realization, bodhisattva, and finally, Buddhahood. The world of learning is the first step out of the reactive cycle. This is the state where you recognize your suffering and actively seek a path to transcend it. You study the wisdom of others. You immerse yourself in philosophy. You seek knowledge as a tool for liberation. It is noble. It is necessary. But it is still fundamentally dependent on an external teacher or doctrine. Then comes the world of realization.
This is the moment when you cease relying solely on books and instead achieve a profound personal epiphany. You see the law of cause and effect operating in your own life. You witness the ephemeral nature of all existence. You realize internally that everything changes. This realization brings immense peace. But both learning and realization suffer from a fatal flaw. They often lead to withdrawal. The individual, having found their own peace, tends to retreat from the chaotic mess of the lower 6 worlds. They become solitary sages, content in their own wisdom, but abandoning the suffering masses. This is a form of spiritual selfishness. It is a high state, but it is incomplete. The true revolutionary leap is the world of the Bodhisattva. A Bodhisattva is someone who has achieved the internal peace of realization, but fundamentally rejects the luxury of solitude.
They take the vow to postpone their own final, ultimate enlightenment until every other living being is free from suffering. The Bodhisattva actively chooses to re-enter the hell, the hunger, and the anger of the world, not as a victim, but as a warrior of compassion. Their purpose is not escape, their purpose is transformation. They see the suffering of others and recognize it as their own mission. This is the state that fundamentally changes the map. Because if the first 6 worlds are reactive, states that happen to you, the 4 higher worlds are proactive. They are states you actively choose to inhabit, regardless of external circumstances. This distinction became the central battleground of 13th century Japan, the era of Nichiren Daishonin. The established Buddhist schools of that time focused almost exclusively on escaping this world, on achieving salvation in some distant, pure land, or on achieving solitary realization. The goal was to run away from the 6 paths.
Nichiren looked at the reality of his time, a society ravaged by famine, plague, political upheaval, and constant warfare. He saw people trapped hopelessly in hell and hunger, praying desperately for an escape that never came. He diagnosed the problem not as a failure of the people, but as a fundamental failure of the prevailing religious philosophy. The teachings were telling people that suffering was a permanent condition of this world, and that true freedom was only possible elsewhere. Nichiren declared that this was a betrayal of the true heart of the Buddha's teaching, the Lotus Sutra. His core, world-shaking realization was this: Buddhahood, the highest state of life, is not a destination achieved after death, or a state separate from the 9 lower worlds. It is the inherent potential within the 9 worlds. You do not escape hell to become a Buddha. You manifest Buddhahood in hell. His life became the ultimate brutal proof of this principle.
Nichiren was not a cloistered monk contemplating peace. He was a radical activist, challenging the corrupt powers of the state and the spiritual authorities of his day. His courage was met with relentless persecution. He was slandered, exiled multiple times, and ultimately sentenced to death. Imagine the state of hell: betrayal, paralyzing fear, physical pain, the absolute certainty of non-existence. This is where Nichiren found himself on the execution grounds at Tatsunokuchi in 1271. Yet, standing there, moments before the sword was scheduled to fall, he did not collapse into fear. He did not beg. He did not lament his fate. He looked at his persecutors and manifested the towering, defiant compassion of the Bodhisattva. He saw his suffering not as punishment, but as the perfect opportunity to prove the power of the law. He embodied the principle of the mutual possession of the 10 worlds.
While physically experiencing the conditions of hell, his life state remained absolutely anchored in Buddhahood. The result was miraculous. The executioner's sword was prevented from striking by a blinding celestial object, a documented event that shattered the composure of his persecutors. He was exiled instead of executed. During his subsequent exile on Sado Island, a place of unimaginable cold, hunger, and isolation, he wrote some of his most profound treatises, stating clearly, "The winter never fails to turn into spring." He was not talking about the weather. He was talking about the 10 worlds. He was saying that even when you are buried in the deepest, darkest winter of hell, if you maintain the conviction of the Bodhisattva, the spring of Buddhahood is guaranteed. It is inevitable. This is the technology. This is the map that tells you how to navigate the psychological chaos of existence. It is the understanding that you are not defined by the world you are currently in, whether it is rapture or anger. You are defined by the world you choose to activate. And the only way to consistently activate the higher worlds is through a specific, focused practice designed to tap into the limitless reservoir of the Bodhisattva within you. This practice is the revolution Nichiren handed down. It is the direct means to fuse your life with the ultimate law of the universe. It is the sound that breaks the cycle of the 6 paths. It is the practice of Daimaku. The practice is the sound that breaks the cycle of the 6 paths. It is the practice of Daimaku. What does this sound mean? It is not a prayer in the traditional sense. It is not an appeal to an external deity for salvation. It is an internal declaration, a vow, a fusion. The phrase is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Nam means dedication or devotion.
It is the action of aligning your small, finite life with the boundless, infinite law. Myoho is the mystic law. Myo means mystic, profound, hidden. Ho means law or entity. It is the fundamental rhythm of the universe, the reality that life and death, good and evil, suffering and joy are inseparable and simultaneous aspects of a single reality. Renge is the lotus flower. The lotus is the perfect metaphor for this law because it produces its flower and its seed at the same time. The flower is the cause, the seed is the effect. They exist together. This illustrates the principle of the simultaneity of cause and effect. In every moment, the cause you create through your thoughts, words, and actions is simultaneously producing the effect within the deepest reservoir of your life. You don't have to wait for the next life for karma to manifest. It is happening now. Kyo is the sutra, the teaching, the sound. It is the vibration that expresses the eternal continuity of life across time.
When you put them together, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo is the declaration, I dedicate my life to the mystic law of the simultaneity of cause and effect, which is the ultimate truth of the universe. But this is not just philosophy. It is applied technology. Nichiren taught that the ultimate law, the inherent, eternal Buddhahood, is not outside of you. It is the core potential of your own life. When you chant the Daimoku, you are vibrating your environment and your own consciousness with the rhythm of the ultimate reality. You are forcefully activating the highest state of life, Buddhahood, which resides permanently within you. Remember the mutual possession of the 10 worlds. When you activate Buddhahood, you do not erase the other 9 worlds. You integrate them. Your life is no longer defined by the hell you are experiencing, but by the Buddhahood that is experiencing the hell, the suffering of the lower 6 paths. Hell, hunger, animality, anger, humanity, rapture, does not disappear.
But it shifts
from being a punishment or a dead end to being the fuel for your transformation. The fire of your anger becomes the burning conviction of the Bodhisattva. The paralyzing despair of hell becomes the profound depth of your capacity to understand the suffering of others. The practice of Daimoku is the steering wheel. It is the mechanism that allows you to choose which world is driving the vehicle of your life. Nichiren understood that for the common person, the path of monastic meditation, requiring decades of isolation and esoteric study, was impossible. The modern world demands a practice that is immediate, accessible, and applicable amidst the chaos of daily life. Raising children, paying bills, fighting injustice. He democratized enlightenment. He provided a method so direct that a single person, sitting in the midst of their own personal turmoil, could instantly tap into the same infinite power that sustained him on the execution grounds of Tatsunokuchi.
This is the radical challenge of this Buddhism. It demands accountability. It removes the comfort of blaming fate or God or external circumstances. Because if the law is within you and your life state is defined by the world you activate, then the power to change everything rests entirely in your hands. You are the master of your own psychology. You are the driver of the 10 worlds. But this power is not passive. It requires consistent effort. It requires the disciplined commitment to fuse your life with the law, day after day, through the sound of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. This practice is the crucible where transformation occurs. You are not changing the external world first. You are changing the internal world, your fundamental life state, and the external reality shifts to reflect that inner change. This is what it means to attain Buddhahood in this lifetime. It does not mean floating away on a cloud of bliss.
It means becoming absolutely undefeated by the circumstances of existence. It means standing firmly in the mud of the 9 worlds, radiating the light of the 10th. This is where true courage is forged. It is easy to be a good person when things are going well, when you are in the world of rapture. The true test of your life state comes when the universe throws you into hell, when you are betrayed, when you are financially ruined, when you are sick, when you are facing the inevitable loss of everything you hold dear. Do you collapse into despair and animality? Or do you stand up, look at the suffering, and declare your unwavering commitment to the law? Do you stand up and chant? This is not a theoretical question. This is the difference between being swept away by the current of the 6 lower paths and harnessing the current of the 4 noble paths. The journey through the 10 worlds is not linear. You will fall back into hell. You will become consumed by anger.
You will drift into rapture and forget your mission. The purpose of the practice is not to eliminate the lower worlds, but to shorten their duration, to minimize their destructive power, and to ensure that no matter how deep you fall, the conviction of the Bodhisattva, the memory of your true identity, snaps you back to the wheel. Now, understand the scale of this commitment. This practice is not a quick fix. It is the lifelong dedication to revolutionizing your own character. It is the commitment to consistently choosing the most difficult, most compassionate, and most responsible life state. It is the constant, conscious effort to turn the winter of your life into the spring of Buddhahood. The map has been revealed. The technology has been handed down. The power rests in the sound. But knowledge is useless without action. The map does not drive the car. You do.
The true test of your understanding of the 10 worlds is whether you will commit to the practice that allows you to control them. Are you willing to step into the driver's seat? The map is useless if the cartographer did not survive the journey. We are talking about Nichiren Daishonin. He was not a philosopher sitting comfortably on a mountain pondering abstract ideas. He was a revolutionary, a man who dared to challenge the established, corrupted power structure of 13th century Japan. His life was the ultimate, non-stop test of the 10 worlds. When he declared his teaching that the Lotus Sutra was the ultimate guide to realizing Buddhahood in this life, the universe responded with overwhelming violence. He was not just criticized, he was hunted. He was exiled. He was betrayed by his closest disciples. He was literally targeted for execution. His entire existence was designed to throw him into hell, into the state of starvation, into animality. But this is the critical distinction. Nichiren did not deny the suffering. He did not retreat from the 9 worlds. He used them as the stage upon which he manifested the 10th. When he was banished to the desolate island of Sado, a frozen, isolated place where survival was a daily struggle, he was physically in hell. He was starving, cold, and surrounded by enemies. But psychologically, he was in the state of Buddhahood. He wrote, "The winter never fails to turn into spring." He was not expressing a hope. He was stating an immutable law of the universe that he was currently embodying. He understood that the depth of the winter was merely the necessary prelude to the power of the spring. The greater the persecution, the greater the proof of the law. This is the meaning of the oneness of the 9 worlds and the state of Buddhahood.
It is the realization that hell is not a place you are sent to, but a mental state you pass through. And when you pass through it while maintaining the conviction of the law, that hell becomes the very fuel for your enlightenment. Think about the Tatsunokuchi persecution. Nichiren is led out under the cover of night, fully expecting to be decapitated. The swordsman raises his blade. This is the absolute apex of human terror. If there is a moment designed to shatter the human spirit and plunge the mind into the deepest abyss of hell, this is it. Yet, at that moment, Nichiren was not crying out in fear. He was not begging for his life. He was declaring his ultimate victory over the forces of darkness. He was chanting, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. The accounts say that a blinding celestial object appeared in the sky, striking the executioner with terror, forcing him to drop his sword.
Whether you believe the historical account or view it as a metaphor, the psychological truth is undeniable. Nichiren's life state, his unwavering commitment, shattered the destructive power of that moment. He did not survive because he was lucky. He survived because he refused to surrender the driver's seat of his life. He refused to let the circumstances determine his internal state. That is the power you are accessing. When you sit down before the Gohonzon, the mandala, you are not looking at a picture of Nichiren. You are looking at a blueprint of your own life. You are looking at a graphic representation of the 10 worlds. Notice what is inscribed at the center. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, Nichiren. This is the ultimate teaching. The law is not separate from the person who embodies it. The law is the engine. The person is the manifestation.
The Gohonzon serves as the mirror, reflecting the potential of Buddhahood inherent in your life, even as you may be chanting from the state of anger or the state of hunger. It reminds you that all 10 worlds are present, but that the law, the power to elevate your state, is always at the center. It is a constant, physical reminder that you are not merely the victim of the 6 lower paths. You are the master who holds the key to the 4 noble paths. The practice is the disciplined daily effort to ensure that no matter how savage the winter of your circumstances, the sun of Buddhahood is always rising within your heart. This is why the practice is so demanding. It is easy to be a Buddhist when you are at a retreat center, surrounded by peace and quiet. The true challenge is to manifest the state of Bodhisattva in the middle of your screaming children, your demanding boss, your crippling debt, or your physical pain. Nichiren gave us the key, the sound, the technology to perform this psychological alchemy. He demonstrated that the pressure of hell is not meant to crush you. It is meant to compress you into the diamond of your true self. The question is no longer whether the 10 worlds exist. The question is, what world are you choosing to inhabit right now, in this moment, as you listen to this? Are you willing to let the history of Nichiren become the prophecy of your own victory? The choice is made through sound. The technology Nichiren left us is the vibration of the fundamental law itself. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. This is not a prayer requesting an external deity to intervene. It is an affirmation. When you sit before the Gohonzon and utter that sacred sound, you are not begging the universe for a favor. You are commanding the universe, which is inseparable from your own life, to align with the rhythm of the highest truth.
You are dialing the frequency away from the static and suffering of hell and toward the clear, powerful signal of Buddhahood. The Daimoku is the immediate cause that produces the effect of Buddhahood in your life. Every single utterance is an act of internal warfare against the destructive gravitational pull of the 6 lower paths. It is the constant, disciplined effort required to keep the driver's seat firmly in your grasp. The reason this practice is so potent is because it fuses the internal reality with the external reality. You are not just changing your mood, you are changing your destiny. You are changing the environment itself, because the environment is merely the reflection of the life state of the people who inhabit it. This is the meaning of Eisho Fune, the oneness of life and its environment. When you elevate the state of your life from hunger to bodhisattva, the circumstances around you are viewed, processed, and responded to from that higher vantage point.
The debt doesn't vanish instantly, but your wisdom to conquer it manifests instantly. The disease doesn't disappear, but the courage to fight it and the compassion to share your struggle with others becomes limitless. You are taking the poison of your suffering, the crippling debt, the abusive relationship, the physical pain, and using the law to transform it into medicine. You do not run from your karma, you burn it as fuel. This is the principle of changing poison into medicine. This practice is not for the faint of heart. It demands consistency. It demands courage. It demands a commitment to self-mastery that transcends convenience. You cannot expect to master the 10 worlds by chanting once a week when you feel like it. You must make this law the backbone of your existence. You must commit to the daily discipline of seated practice, morning and evening,
rain or shine, victory or defeat. Why?
Because the world you live in is a direct reflection of the world you cultivate internally. If you want a life defined by ultimate compassion, boundless courage, and penetrating wisdom, the three virtues of Buddhahood, you must activate them daily. You must water the seeds of the highest state every single day. Stop blaming the environment. Stop waiting for the conditions to be perfect. Stop allowing the state of anger or the state of hell to dictate your potential. The map has been laid out before you. The 10 worlds are no longer abstract philosophy. They are the reality of your mind, the landscape you navigate every single hour. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo is the key to the ignition. You have the map and you have the engine. Now you must drive. The only question left is this. When you look in the mirror tomorrow morning, which world will you be staring back at? The time for analysis is over. The time for revolution is now. Go.